welcome. My name is Ryan. I am the lead educator here at the Racine Zoo. I've worked here a couple of years and started super part-time and worked my way up and do a lot of our programming here. We bring out animals for special events and all sorts of fun things. So today we're going to meet 4 animals from around the world, starting with our smallest of animals. And this is one of my favorite animals here at the zoo. This is Georgia. Georgia is a Madagascar hissing cockroach. So Georgia here is not actually full grown yet. She's only a couple years old. Madagascar hissing roaches, they'll live up to 5 years. So let me grab my friend here to give you guys a closer look. So they live up to 5 years. They are one of the larger species of roaches. Here's Georgia. She's moving around a lot, as you can see here. So Madagascar hissing cockroaches are from the island of Madagascar, an island off the coast of Africa. So they are really important there. They are the cleanup crew of the forest. So without these guys, the forest would be really, really dirty there. There's lots of animals that can make a mess. Things like lemurs, they drop fruit pieces down to the forest floor. So these guys' job is to clean up all of that mess. So they come out at nighttime and grab all that food, all that decaying stuff off the ground. So believe it or not, most species, over 95% of species of roaches do not invade our homes and don't bother us at all, and are extremely important for different habitats to keep everybody in line and keep everything clean. So not only are they keeping things clean, but they're providing food for other animals. They are a food source, I mean. So these guys actually are eaten by things like lemurs and all sorts of animals, and they have lots of protein. So a nice, tasty treat for a lot of animals as well. So they do serve an important role on the food chain. Now, I mentioned that they're a hissing cockroach, and one of the cool adaptations that helps our friends survive is that hissing sound that they make. Now, they have these tiny holes that run down their back, and you might be able to see those. I'll give you a close look here. Those are called spiracles, and what they do is they release air out of those holes really quickly to create that hissing sound. So they actually do that to sound like a snake. So a lot of animals are scared of snakes in Madagascar. So being able to create a sound that sounds like a snake is a great way to scare off some that might eat you. So imagine if you were like a lemur and you're searching for something tasty to eat on the forest floor, and all of a sudden, Georgia here creates that hissing sound. If you were a lemur and you heard that sound, you get scared and you run away because you don't want to mess with anything that could be a snake. So great way to scare off potential predators. You can see how those holes run down my friend's backside here. As crazy as this sounds, they also breathe out of those holes on their backside there. They breathe out of their butts. So kind of silly. A lot of critters like this do that. Now moving upwards here on my friend's body, you can also see that they have a pretty dark brown color to them. Now I mentioned they do come out at nighttime. They are nocturnal. So this brown color helps them to blend in, kind of look like a leaf. So imagine this guy just hanging out really, really still on the forest floor. A lot of animals would not be able to see them very well, blending into those dead leaves on the forest ground. So another thing, as we move up the body here, you can see their legs. Now, cockroaches do spend most of their time on the forest floor, but they can venture up into the forest in search of food when food is sparse on the ground. So if you look here, I'm going to try my best to give you a close look. There are little tiny hooks, and you can kind of see those gripping hold of my thumb there. And those little hooks help them so they can climb. So roaches like this are experts at climbing as well. They can climb really quickly up into the trees if they need to get away or in search of food. So they have all those little tiny hooks on their feet. So they're good climbers. Now, coming out at nighttime, they can see all right, but they do rely on other senses to help them find their way around. One of the biggest things they have to help them is those antennas. And those are pretty pretty long. You can see those there and how they're moving around even right now during the day. So those antennas kind of help them so they can feel their way around at nighttime. So you can see those there kind of moving. Now, cockroaches, their closest living relative is actually found here in Wisconsin. So, or in Illinois as well. Now, if you look at my friend's triangular shaped head, you might actually have an idea of what kind of critter, what kind of insect looks a lot like them. So think of the triangular shaped head. The triangular shaped head also happens with praying mantises. So if you look here, they have a very similar shaped head to a praying mantis. So they're very closely related. You can see a nice close look there. Now, if anyone has any questions throughout this, you guys are welcome to post those in the comment section, or you can also unmute yourself for those as well. But that is our friend Georgia. Now I know this is a female because females have a really flat body, and you can see that here. Now if it was a male, they'd actually have a bump on their back, kind of look almost like, yeah, almost like horns in a way. And that is how you can tell male from female pretty easily. We do not have a problem breeding our friends here, so we do keep our males and our females separated. You can find our males in the Discovery Center here at our zoo, and the females are our animal ambassadors. So these ones come out for the programs. I'm imagining that they are close relatives. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they definitely are pretty closely related to those guys too, for sure. Awesome, you guys. Well, that is Georgia. So wave bye to Georgia, and we're gonna meet another animal friend. Moving up here, we're gonna see some bigger animals now. This next animal I'm actually going to wear gloves for, so I'll give you a bit of a clue to what this animal is. This animal is native to Wisconsin, and it does have a long tail, and it has very slimy skin. So there is my clue to you. So I'll put some gloves on. So I'll show you my friend in the crate first, and then I'm going to take my friend out to meet you up close. Probably going to be kind of hard to see in the crate, but this is my friend Sally. And Sally is a tiger salamander. So I'm going to take my friend out right away. I did miss this, so it's kind of hard to see her through the crate. They do like to stay nice and damp. So here is my friend Sally, the tiger salamander. So she's pretty large, as you can see here. They can get upwards of a foot long, maybe even a little bit longer than that sometimes. So they are one of the larger species of salamanders. They get their tiger salamander name from that that pattern that they have down their back there. You could see they have a really unique look to their body there. Now, salamanders, it's pretty easy to tell them apart just by their names. So you have the blue-spotted salamander, which you can find because it has blue spots that you can find here in Wisconsin and Illinois. You have the yellow-spotted that you can find in Wisconsin and Illinois that has yellow spots. You have the red-back salamander that has a red back. It has those lines that run down its back that are red. So it's pretty easy to tell them apart just by their names. But this one by far is one of the larger ones here. So you can see my friend up close here. You can see that their skin's really slimy. They are not a reptile. They are an amphibian. So they have very slimy skin. Now this skin definitely is great for them because it does help them in the water. All they do is they'll sit on top of water and they can drink water through the pores that they have in their skin, which is great for them. But sometimes they have to be extra cautious in the water they drink because they drink through those holes in their skin. those can get clogged really easily. So if they're drinking out of dirty water, they can get really sick and actually die from that. So oftentimes you can actually look at a piece of land and it could be more valuable if you purchase land that has amphibians living on it and thriving on it, because that tells you that the water is very clean there. So these guys are often relied on by lots of people to decide if the water in a wetland is clean or not by just looking at populations of amphibians like this one here. Now, what's really cool about salamanders, you can see my friend's tail here. It's pretty long, actually. The tail itself is probably as long as the body and the head alone. Now, they can lose parts of their tail, their arms, their legs, and even parts of their major organs, as crazy as that sounds, and they can regenerate those. Now, they're not going to grow back as nice and pretty as they did the first time. They'll kind of be more like the tail will be more of a stump. But it does grow back a bit, and they can survive from that, which is crazy to think. And there's actually been research done to see how they're able to do that and how that could be applied to maybe something to help people. Now, Sally here likes to live in the wetlands most of her life. She does start out as a tadpole and works her way up and becomes our friend here. Now, when they do live in those wetlands for that period of time, once they get big enough like this, they start to venture off into the wet, damp forests. So they like to live in those underneath logs and underneath leaves, and they often stay really hidden. So you'd have to look pretty hard to find salamanders because they like to stay in cool, damp places and then venture off to water for breeding. But yeah, most of the time they stay pretty hidden, and that's why their colors are so dark like this too. Because even if you were to dig up underneath a log or underneath a leaf, these colors would really help them to blend in. Even if they were sitting really still, you probably wouldn't even notice you stirred up a salamander. So some things they have to worry about are maybe frogs, even other salamanders might eat each other, birds, so snakes, lots of different critters might try to eat them, raccoons, skunks. They have a lot of predators to worry about, and that's why they stay pretty hidden. Oftentimes, salamanders will venture off after a rain, especially a warm rain. So they'll venture off in search of new places to hang out and find food. So a big salamander like this, like I mentioned, they can eat other salamanders, but they eat a lot of insects. So anything you kind of imagine finding underneath a log, so maybe like some worms or some mealworms, crickets, stuff like that, would all be fair game for our friend here. Now, because their skin does absorb that water, they do take in that water through their skin. That's why I'm wearing gloves here for our friend, because the oils on my skin could actually harm Sally. So I want to make sure I keep Sally nice and safe and healthy by not touching her with my oily skin. Awesome. Does anyone have any questions? Is the tiger salamander larger than usual? I've seen others that are much smaller. That is a great question. Sally here is pretty much full grown. She can grow a little bit bigger. Sometimes people accidentally mix up the spotted salamander versus the tiger salamander as well, which is a little bit smaller too. Tiger salamanders are a lot harder to come by than the yellow spotted or the blue spotted salamander, which are a lot more common in our areas. But you can definitely find these guys if you're looking. They do say that they like to stay on the cooler side of hills. So that's where I went to Stevens Point for school, University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point, and we went out herping and we searched for salamanders, and we would search on the cool side of hills, so where the sun wasn't beating. So you would go on the shaded side of that hill and you'd actually be able to find more salamanders because it would be more damp on that shaded side of the hill. So you have to just look in the right places to find these guys. Awesome. Well, if anyone else has any other questions, please let me know. And we'll give you a nice up close look at Sally here. So salamanders like this, tiger salamanders, they can live upwards 10, 15 years. They have a pretty long lifespan for sure. So Sally, I believe, is about 6 or 7 years old. I don't remember her birthday exactly off the top of my head, but she is super cute. All right, you guys. Well, I am going to put Sally away. So say bye to Sally. All right. So our next animal, super cool animal, also another animal that is native to our area, more common in Wisconsin than Illinois, but they can still be found in some areas. They are pretty slow. They live on land, and they have almost like a beak mouth. And here's a big clue for you. They have a shell. So let's see what my next animal is. Give me a second here while I get this animal out. I also have to wear gloves for this animal, but I have to switch out my gloves, of course, so just give me a second here. We wear gloves for these animals because, believe it or not, they are believed to possibly be able to get COVID. So you want to be extra cautious. So wearing gloves and having very few of us handling these guys is the best option. So this is my friend Carl. So Carl is super cute. I feel like one of the cuter box turtles I've ever met. So Carl here, believe it or not, is actually 18 years old. So he's about middle-aged for a box turtle. Box turtles will live about 40, 50 years. In human care, they can even live longer than that. They do have a pretty long lifespan. Lots of turtles do. Now, I mentioned that they have like a beak mouth, and that kind of stands out right away when I look at my friend here. You can see that there. So that beak helps them so they can eat their food. So our friend here is an omnivore. So that just means they like to eat plants and meat. So whenever they come across, they're going to try to eat. That might be a fish, might be an insect, might be some plants, all sorts of little stuff like that they might enjoy eating. So that beak kind of helps them to bite into that and tear off bits and pieces. So here at the zoo, our friend actually eats pinky mice. So little tiny mice, eats one of those every so often. And that's one of their favorite snacks here. Of course, they get a salad every day with all sorts of tasty vegetables, lettuce and stuff like that, that they really, really enjoy. But yeah, they definitely eat all sorts of different stuff. Now, they get their name box turtle. So this is an ornate box turtle. And they get the ornate part because of that really unique pattern that they have down their back there. You can see all the different colors and look to the back of their shell there. But they get the box turtle part of their name because of what they can do to help them survive. Now, as crazy as this sounds, most turtles cannot completely hide in their shell. But box turtles, like this one here, can do that. And how they're able to is by this special hinge on their shell. So you can see that here, this line that runs down their shell. What they can do is they can actually close their shell on top of their head. So you can kind of see how they might be able to do that there. Close their shell on top of their head. And that's how they're able to stay safe. So they can hide their head, their arms, and their legs inside their shell. So if something were to come after them, maybe like a fox or a raccoon or something, they could curl up in that shell. And it's going to be very hard for animals to break through that because that's very, very tough protection. It's just a big thing of armor on their back. Now, these guys are a bit unusual. They are a turtle. They do look a lot like a tortoise. Now, when you look at a turtle, most of the time you're looking to see if they have webbed feet. So turtles often have webbed feet to help them to swim. Now, our friend here doesn't have webbed feet, but instead has those claws. So these guys are quite the diggers. So they will dig down in search of food. They might even dig down to help them survive through the winter. So they can dig down and hibernate in the ground to stay nice and warm throughout the winter months. So something else that's really interesting about turtles, and tortoises is actually what you can do with their shell. So it might be kind of hard to see looking at my friend here on this camera, but you can see how each one of these segments on their shell has different lines to it. There's different lines in each one of these. There's different rings. So you can actually age our friend based off of those. You can get an estimated age on them. So it's kind of cool to see that. You might need a magnifying glass for some of those, but you can definitely look and see those you can see those rings. There you go. You can see them pretty well there. So every ring they get a new ring as they get older every year. So it kind of adds more character to their shell. So their shell gets a little more bumpy as they get older. Now, I'm sure a lot of us have tried to rescue turtles before off the road and stuff, and that's a great thing to do, of course, making sure that we're safe and not running in front of cars or anything. But we do want to help our turtle friends when we can, because obviously they're not the fastest of animals, and they do often come across roads. And one of the biggest reasons for that is they do like the gravel on the edge of roads. So the gravel on the edge of the roads is really easy for them to dig into. So they'll often lay their eggs right against the road and then cross the road to get back to where they were living. So they often get attracted to roads because it's an easy place to lay their eggs. So unfortunately, often, especially in the summertime, you may see the big female turtles crossing the road and getting struck by cars. So we want to do our best to help our friends cross the road. Just make sure if you ever try to rescue a turtle or maybe a tortoise, depending on where you're living, crossing the road, that you put them in the direction that they are facing. So it's really important that you do that because if you put them and you turn them the other direction, then they are just simply going to turn back around and walk in the direction they were heading. They were going that way for a reason. So it's really important we don't give them a chance to cross the road twice, and we help them, assist them in crossing the road in the direction they were heading. So it's important we help out our turtle friends. Box turtles are threatened in many places, not doing extremely well. So we want to do the best we can to help them. They do very well in areas where there's sandier soil. So places near the Wisconsin River, box turtles have been sighted pretty often because they're very easy. They can very easily dig in those type of areas versus in more clay-like soils. It might be harder for our friend to dig down into the ground. Does anyone have any questions about our friend Carl? So I used to have a box turtle who would only eat red fruits and veggies, red peppers, tomatoes, raspberries, and strawberries. Interesting. That is, sometimes box turtles, they might be interested in a certain color. Our friend here definitely likes some strawberries. That's definitely a tasty treat for a lot of turtles and tortoises. They love those type of snacks for sure. But yeah, that's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So we have 3 box turtles at the zoo. So we have here Carl, who is 18. We have Jewel, who's 30, I think 31 now. And then we have Claude, who's 26. So we have 3 of them all living together happily. And you can see these guys actually at the Discovery Center here at the zoo, hanging out. All right. Well, we can wave bye to my friend Carl here. So say bye, Carl. All right, so our first animal was from Madagascar, the Madagascar hissing cockroach, one of the largest species of cockroaches. Then we met our friend Sally, the tiger salamander. So Sally was found here in Wisconsin and Illinois, native to our area. Then we met another native animal. We met Carl, the box turtle, who's a threatened animal in most places, also can be found in our area as well. Now we're going to meet someone from Northern Africa. So give me a second while I get my friend out. This animal's from Northern Africa. It is a mammal. So we're going to take a break from the reptiles and amphibians and little bugs. We're going to meet our friend here, who's got lots of spikes and is a mammal that lives in Northern Africa. So there's your clues. So give me a second here while I grab my friend. So this is my friend Minx. So Minx is super cool. Minx is a northern African hedgehog. And first off, looking right away, you can probably notice that my friend here is moving that nose around like crazy. So that is how they're able to find their food. They don't necessarily have the best eyesight, but they have excellent sense of smell. And you can see how Minx here is able to move that nose around like crazy in search of all sorts of things. So Minx is smelling all the different new smells that are in this room here for sure. Very interested in what's going on here. So these guys, they do eat a lot of insects. They are an insectivore, which is just pretty much a pretty fancy word that means that they only like to eat insects. So our friend here's got that big sniffer there. So they can find those bugs. They can find them way down in the ground, inches down into the ground if they need to. So they can even use those little tiny claws there. And let me see if I get you a closer look. Little tiny claws, and those can help them to dig down into the ground in search of those bugs. So kind of similar to what Sally might eat, our friend here might eat as well. So worms, crickets, mealworms. Picture flipping over a log. What kind of critters might you find underneath there? That's kind of what our friend here might like to eat. So they spend a lot of time on the floor of, they live in a lot of different habitats actually. These guys might live in the dry forest. They might live in the grasslands. They have a lot of different habitats that they might like to live in, but they spend a lot of time on the ground, underneath a log, sleeping during the day, staying hidden, and then coming out at night in search of those little bugs. You can see they also have a lot of they have those whiskers as well. They're not super long, not as long as some mammals might have, but they are pretty long, and they do help them so they can kind of feel their way around at night as well. These guys might be hidden in a burrow or something in the ground, and that can help them too, so they can kind of feel how large that space is. Now, I'm trying to flip my friend here so you guys can see a closer look here. Another really cool thing is their ears. So of course, coming out at nighttime, being nocturnal, you're going to rely on a lot of different senses, not just sight, but we talked about the nose, we talked about the whiskers. Of course, now those big ears, they're pretty impressive even for the size of this animal. They're pretty big. So it might be hard for you guys to hear this or to do this effectively, but try this with a friend or something sometime. So listen to the sound of my voice. Now put a cup on your ear and listen to the sound of my voice. Now, does it sound any louder? It might be hard to hear through the camera here or through the video, but if you do that, you might notice that by putting a cup on your ear, you might be able to hear better, because the more surface area to your ear, the more sound you're able to trap in, and the better you can hear. So animals, for example, like an elephant, have excellent hearing. The animal we might find around here could be a rabbit. They have really good hearing as well. So oftentimes you might find animals with very large ears having very good hearing. So you can see our friend here has pretty large ears, so they can hear pretty well as well. Now a hedgehog like this, they do have those spikes, of course. We're finally getting into those spikes here. So porcupines, they launch off their spikes. A lesser tenric, who you guys might have met in a previous program, they launch, so they don't launch their spikes, they actually lunge backwards with their spikes out. Now our friend here, they actually just roll up into a ball and they stick those spikes up in the air. So that's how they stay safe. Now once they're rolled up into that ball, you notice that their underside doesn't have any spikes. Let me see if I can give you a better look at that there. So their underside doesn't have any spikes. So when they roll up into that ball, they're not poking themselves, but once they roll into that ball and have those spikes sticking out, they puff themselves up and they make a hissing sound, almost a sound like a snake in a way. And that sound alone could scare off animals that might want to eat them. But when they roll up in that ball and have those spikes out, not much is going to mess with them. Maybe something like a fox might try, but it's going to be very hard for them to break through. And not a lot of animals are going to try to mess with that, given that they don't want a big ball of spikes in their mouth. It wouldn't taste very good. So pretty cool way of surviving. And believe it or not, because hedgehogs, this adaptation works so well for them, these spikes, they can get pretty brave. They often are out. You might see them even out in the open, even sometimes near a predator, potential predator, because they just know that a lot of animals aren't going to necessarily mess with them now that they have all these spikes. So there's northern African hedgehogs, there's southern African hedgehogs, and sometimes those southern ones come across things even like lions. And lions don't even mess with them necessarily because of all those spikes. Not worth it. They don't want to get bit and get eaten or get bit or not. I mean, they could get bit for sure, but get poked by those spikes. Awesome. Does anyone have any questions about my friend Minx here? Well, no worries if you don't have any questions. So Minx here is actually was someone's pet. We did rescue Minx. Minx is from the Humane Society. So someone just couldn't take care of Minx anymore. So we adopted her. And now Minx is a new animal ambassador, or not new, but fairly new, I guess, animal ambassador here at the zoo. So a lot of times we'll do our best to adopt animals when we can. We did adopt our rabbits here, Taco and Belle as well. So our chinchillas, so a lot of our animals are adopted. Trying to find forever homes for our friends, and what a good place to spend the rest of your life is here at a place where the animals are cared for exceptionally well. All right, everyone. Well, our friend actually just pooped on the computer. So I call Minx a bit of a poop monster. She likes to poop a lot. So she just dropped a few poops on the computer here, just to remind me of what she's good at here. But all right, you guys, I'm going to put Minx away here. All right, you guys. Well, we had a chance to meet 4 really cool animals from around the world. Our first animal was Georgia, the Madagascar hissing cockroach, one of the largest species of cockroaches found in Madagascar, closely related to the praying mantis. Then we saw our second animal friend, who was Sally. Sally, the tiger salamander, native to our area, and actually they're native through North America and Mexico. They have a pretty wide range, so a super cool animal for sure. One of the larger species of salamanders. Then we met our friend Carl, the box turtle, the ornate box turtle, threatened in a lot of places, but also found in our area as well, scattered spots. A really cool animal that can actually close their shell completely on them, which most turtles can't do to stay safe. And then, last but not least, we met Minx, our little poop monster, the northern African hedgehog, who has really cool, excellent hearing and really cool ways of finding their food at night. So I hope you guys really enjoyed meeting some of these really cool animals from around the world. And of course, if you guys have any questions, please let me know. You are welcome to email me as well at rredsky@racinezoo.org. I'd be happy to get back with you with any questions you may have. But thank you so much, you guys. And I hope to see you at our next program here in September. So thank you.